a badge with 3 points, yet it rules every road on Earth. Born from the minds of inventors who refuse to quit, Mercedes-Benz has been a war survivor, a style icon, a racing champion, and now a leader in electric luxury. From palaces to pit lanes, its cars have carried royalty, rebels, and dreamers alike. Every curve tells a story. Every engine hides a legacy. This isn't just the history of a car brand. It's the evolution of an empire. And today, you're about to see how the star became eternal. What if I told you that one of the most luxurious and powerful car brands in the world began with a three-wheeled, gasoline-powered carriage that looked nothing like the cars we know today? The year was 1886. The world still moved on horses, steam trains, and bicycles. But in a small German workshop, an inventor named Carl Benz had a vision. He wasn't thinking about status symbols or racetrack victories. He just wanted to create a machine that could move without horses, powered entirely by a small engine of his own design. That machine was the Benz patent Motorwagen, the first practical automobile in history. It was awkward, slow, and had only one cylinder, but it worked, and that changed everything. Across Germany, another genius, Gottlieb Daimler, and his partner Wilhelm Maybach were working on their own engine technology. Their dream, to make personal transportation faster, lighter, and more practical. They didn't know it yet, but these two paths would collide, creating a brand that would dominate roads for over a century. But here's the twist. Carl Benz almost gave up. His invention wasn't selling. People thought it was dangerous and unnecessary. That's when Bertha Benz, Carl's wife, took matters into her own hands. In 1888, without telling him, she drove the Motorwagen over 60 miles to her mother's house, the first long-distance car trip in history. Along the way, she fixed the car herself, bought fuel from a pharmacy, and proved to the world that the automobile wasn't just a crazy idea. It was the future. This daring act lit the spark. The world began to pay attention. Carl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler kept improving their designs, each creating faster, more reliable vehicles. And while they were still rivals at this point, their innovations were shaping the birth of modern transportation. This was the moment the star began to form. Not yet shining, but burning with potential. And the next step would take these pioneers from rival inventors to partners in creating one of the most iconic brands in history. By the early 1920s, both Carl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler had passed away, but their legacies were alive in two separate companies, Benz and Company and Daimler Motorengesellschaft, DMG. Germany was still reeling from World War I, the economy was unstable, and competition in the car industry was fierce. Survival meant thinking bigger. That's when the two former rivals made a historic decision: to unite. In 1926, they merged to form Mercedes-Benz. The name Mercedes came from a DMG car that had gained fame years earlier, named after the daughter of an Austrian businessman who had ordered it. Benz honored Carl's pioneering work, but the most powerful symbol was the three-pointed star, representing domination over land, sea, and air. This wasn't just a business deal, it was the birth of a brand identity. The merger combined Daimler's engineering prowess with Benz's production experience. Almost immediately, the new company began producing cars that were faster, more stylish, and more luxurious than anything before. They weren't just selling vehicles, they were selling prestige. The Mercedes-Benz 10/50 PS and the supercharged compressor models roared onto the scene, wowing drivers and winning races. These cars didn't just move people from one place to another, they made a statement. And for wealthy customers, that statement was clear. Owning a Mercedes-Benz meant you had arrived. Still, the brand wasn't satisfied. The next decade would push their engineering skills to the limit as they prepared to create some of the most beautiful and technically advanced cars of the pre-war era. The star was no longer just shining, it was blazing across Europe. The late 1920s and 1930s were a golden age for Mercedes-Benz. The world was falling in love with the automobile, and the brand seized the moment with cars that were as much art as they were machines. Models like the 500K and 540K weren't just transportation, they were rolling sculptures. Long, sweeping hoods, chrome details, and interiors lined with the finest leather turned every drive into an event. But Mercedes-Benz wasn't only about beauty. They were building engineering marvels. Their supercharged engines, dubbed compressor, delivered thrilling power that could take on the fastest cars in Europe. These machines didn't just win over customers, they dominated motorsport. From hill climbs to endurance races, the three-pointed star was a regular sight on the winner's podium. However, shadows were falling across Europe. As political tensions rose in the 1930s, Mercedes-Benz found itself in a complicated position. The company continued producing high-end cars for the elite, but it also became involved in building vehicles for the German military. Their technology advanced at an incredible pace, but not always for peaceful purposes. Still, on the civilian side, Mercedes had cemented itself as a brand of elegance, innovation, and speed. The pre-war era proved they could blend artistry with engineering like no other, setting the tone for the decades to come. Yet the looming war would soon test the company's very survival. When World War II ended in 1945, Germany was in ruins, and so was Mercedes-Benz. Factories lay in rubble, resources were scarce, and the brand's reputation was tied to a difficult past. Many doubted they could recover, but Mercedes-Benz was not ready to fade into history. With remarkable determination, they restarted production, not with luxury sedans or race cars, but with small practical vehicles like the 170V. These cars were simple, reliable, and affordable, helping ordinary people get back on the road. The goal was survival, but even in these humble beginnings, Mercedes retained its commitment to quality. By the early 1950s, confidence returned. The company unveiled the 300 Adenauer, a stately luxury sedan that signaled Mercedes-Benz was back in the high-end market. But it was a sports car, introduced in 1954, that truly shocked the world. The 300 SL Gullwing. With its breathtaking design and revolutionary fuel-injected engine, it wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement. Mercedes-Benz was once again at the forefront of innovation and style. The war had nearly ended the brand, but Mercedes had turned rubble into revival. The star was shining brighter than ever, ready to enter a new era of global dominance. In 1954, Mercedes-Benz didn't just launch a new car, they unveiled a legend. The 300 SL wasn't born in a boardroom, it was born on the racetrack. Its roots trace back to the W194 racing car, which had conquered endurance events like the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But Mercedes had a bold idea. Take that race-winning DNA and make it a road car. The result stunned the world. With its low, sleek body and those unforgettable gull-wing doors, the 300 SL looked like nothing else on the road. Those doors weren't a gimmick. They were necessary because the car's innovative tubular frame left no room for conventional hinges. Underneath, it was just as groundbreaking. The 300 SL was the first production car to feature direct fuel injection, giving it incredible speed for its time, over 160 miles per hour. It wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol. Movie stars, racing drivers, and royalty all wanted one. Owning a 300 SL wasn't just about driving. It was about making a statement that you were part of a rarefied world of elegance and performance. The SL badge would go on to become one of Mercedes-Benz's most enduring icons. From the W113 Pagoda of the 1960s to the high-tech convertibles of today, each SL has carried that mix of style, speed, and innovation. But it all began with a gull-wing masterpiece that turned heads, broke records, and forever cemented the SL line as the soul of Mercedes-Benz's sports car legacy. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, Mercedes-Benz understood something that many competitors overlooked. Performance and beauty mean nothing without safety. Roads were getting faster, cars were getting more powerful, and accidents were becoming deadlier. Mercedes decided to lead the change. In 1959, they introduced the crumple zone, a body design that absorbed impact energy protecting passengers during a crash. This idea was revolutionary. Instead of making a car as rigid as possible, Mercedes engineered it to sacrifice parts of itself to save lives. Soon after, they developed collapsible steering columns, padded dashboards, and advanced seatbelt systems. In the 1970s, Mercedes was among the first to test airbags in passenger cars. By the 1980s, they were pioneers in ABS braking systems and electronic stability control. What made Mercedes unique was that these innovations weren't kept as trade secrets. They often shared safety patents with the entire industry, ensuring other automakers could adopt them too. This commitment reshaped their image. Driving a Mercedes meant you weren't just wrapped in luxury, you were surrounded by cutting-edge protection. It became a brand promise. Whatever happens on the road, Mercedes has your back. And that promise would become just as important as their speed, style, or status. For decades, Mercedes-Benz built its reputation on sedans, coupes, and sports cars. But by the late 1970s, customer demands were shifting. People wanted more variety, vehicles that could handle different lifestyles without losing Mercedes luxury. That's when the brand began expanding its lineup. In 1979, they introduced the G-Class, a rugged, boxy off-roader originally designed for military use. It was tough, capable, and unexpectedly stylish. Over time, it transformed from a utilitarian workhorse into a luxury status symbol, beloved by celebrities, adventurers, and even royalty. Mercedes also leaned into family-friendly options. Station wagons brought practicality to the luxury segment, while the 1990s saw the arrival of the M-Class, their first modern SUV. It set the stage for today's massive range of Mercedes SUVs, from the compact GLA to the flagship GLS. By diversifying, Mercedes proved it could adapt without losing its core identity. Whether you were a CEO in an S-Class, a parent in a GLE, or an explorer in a G-Wagon, you were still part of the same legacy, one defined by quality, comfort, and that unmistakable three-pointed star. From the very beginning, motorsport was part of Mercedes-Benz's DNA. The legendary Silver Arrows of the 1930s were engineering marvels, winning Grand Prix races with blistering speed and precision. But racing wasn't just for trophies. It was a laboratory for innovation. In the post-war era, Mercedes returned to dominance. The 1955 victory at the Mille Miglia, where Sterling Moss piloted a Mercedes 300 SLR to an unmatched record, became the stuff of legend. After a long hiatus from top-tier racing, the brand roared back in the late 20th century, eventually forming the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. With drivers like Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, Mercedes rewrote the record books, winning multiple world championships and establishing one of the most dominant eras in F1 history. These victories weren't just about bragging rights. They were proof that Mercedes could still push engineering to its absolute limits, and the technology developed on the track, from lightweight materials to advanced aerodynamics, often found its way into road cars. Every AMG model carried the heartbeat of a racing machine, reminding owners that behind the luxury was a legacy built at 200 miles per hour. If one car defines Mercedes-Benz's commitment to innovation and prestige, it's the S-Class. Introduced as the brand's flagship luxury sedan in the 1970s, it quickly became the benchmark that every competitor tried to match, and usually failed. The S-Class has always been the first place Mercedes debuts its most advanced technology. Features we now take for granted, ABS brakes, airbags, adaptive cruise control, all made their debut in an S-Class before trickling down to other cars. But it's not just about tech. The S-Class delivers unmatched comfort, from whisper-quiet cabins to handcrafted interiors. Every detail is designed for elegance, from the feel of the leather seats to the glow of the ambient lighting. For many, owning an S-Class is the ultimate automotive achievement, a sign you've reached the top. The phrase, "it's like an S-Class," has become a standard in itself, used to describe anything that sets the bar for excellence. Mercedes didn't just build a car, they built a global symbol of status, innovation, and perfection. As the calendar turned toward the year 2000, Mercedes-Benz found itself at a crossroads. The world was changing fast. Cars were no longer just machines. They were becoming digital companions, rolling showcases of design, luxury, and technology. The challenge for Mercedes was clear. How do you honor over a century of tradition while leading the charge into the future? Their answer was bold. Evolve without losing identity. In 2004, the CLS appeared, rewriting the rules by blending sedan practicality with coupe elegance. Its sweeping roofline was unlike anything in the segment, and soon competitors were scrambling to imitate it. Mercedes interiors transformed too, becoming immersive luxury experiences. Screens began replacing analog dials, voice control joined the cabin, and ambient lighting turned drives into a theater of color. Performance also received a 21st century boost. AMG, once a small tuning arm, became a fully integrated powerhouse, producing monsters like the AMG GT and the 700-plus horsepower Project One hypercar, drawing directly from Formula One tech. Even their SUVs got the AMG treatment, proving luxury didn't mean slow. Yet amid all the digital and mechanical advancements, Mercedes kept one promise. Every car bearing the three-pointed star still delivered that unmistakable blend of comfort, elegance, and engineering precision. Entering the new millennium wasn't just survival, it was reinvention. Mercedes wasn't following trends. They were setting them, just as they had since Carl Benz turned his first wheel. By the late 2000s and 10s, the car industry faced its biggest shift in over a century. The move to electric mobility. For a brand built on roaring engines and mechanical masterpieces, this could have been a crisis. Instead, Mercedes treated it as an opportunity to write the next chapter in its story. The answer came in the form of Mercedes EQ, a sub-brand dedicated to electric innovation. The flagship EQS sedan was a statement of intent. Sleek, silent, and futuristic, with a range to rival the best EVs in the world. Step inside, and you were greeted by the hyperscreen, a sweeping wall of glass and pixel stretching across the dashboard, turning the cabin into a digital cockpit. But Mercedes didn't stop at one car. They rolled out the EQA, EQB, EQE, and EQS SUV, covering every segment from compact crossovers to luxury flagships. Each carried the same DNA: precision engineering, obsessive attention to detail, and a focus on comfort. Even the ride quality, a hallmark of Mercedes, was translated into the smooth, near-silent character of electric power. The brand made it clear, electric doesn't mean compromise. In fact, it could mean progress. By blending sustainability with luxury, Mercedes wasn't just keeping up with the EV revolution. They were helping to shape it. And in doing so, they proved that even in a world without the sound of an engine, the star could still shine bright. Over 130 years after Carl Benz's three-wheeled Motorwagen rattled down a quiet German road, Mercedes-Benz stands as more than a car company. It's a global symbol of aspiration. The three-pointed star isn't just stamped on grills, it's etched into music, fashion, film, and culture itself. You see it gliding down European boulevards, rolling through Hollywood, cruising African coastlines, and conquering Middle Eastern deserts. From S-Class limousines carrying heads of state to G-Wagons prowling city streets, a Mercedes doesn't just take you somewhere, it announces your arrival. Culturally, it's a brand that speaks the universal language of success. In hip-hop lyrics, in James Bond films, in royal motorcades, the star is shorthand for status, elegance, and engineering perfection. Few brands in history have managed to cross so many borders, both geographic and social, while keeping their core identity intact. What makes the legacy unshakable isn't just the machines, it's the mindset. Mercedes has survived wars, economic crashes, and industry revolutions by refusing to be static. Every generation of their cars has carried the DNA of innovation, whether powered by gasoline, diesel, or electricity. The journey from a humble motor car to a global icon is still unfolding. And if history has taught us anything, it's that the star over Stuttgart will keep burning, lighting the road ahead for decades, maybe centuries to come.